And we are live. What's good, Josh? Your man, DL Saint. Welcome. Oh, man, to the Mother's Day edition. I really want to know podcast, man. Forgive me, guys. I've just been so focused and busy. I didn't realize till yesterday that today is Mother's Day. Yes, I did talk to my mom. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And this is just a joyous day for everyone, all concerned. You know what I mean? Big up to your parents and all that good stuff. But hey, we scheduled it, so we're gonna keep it pushing. We're gonna do what we gotta do. So I'm glad you guys are here. I understand if most of you guys are watching Team Replay, that's great. Don't forget to comment because we're gonna be delving into some good stuff and definitely want to hear what you have to say. Brother Dinosaurs in the house already, man. Our cousin from across the pond. Big ups to the UK, man. I wonder if y'all celebrate Mother's Day on the same day over there as we do. But Brother Dinosaur, according to the U.S. Census Bureau data, 50% of women and 47% of men between the ages of 55 and 66 have no retirement savings. Facts. And, a lot of these numbers seem bleak and scary, but, Americans work harder than anywhere else on the planet. Just especially Europe. I mean, you look at other developed nations, the way we do it here in America is way different than most people do it. But here in America, you can go to bed broke on Monday, wake up Thursday a millionaire. That's just how it works, man. The American dream still exists. So without further ado, let's just get into it. We have a very special guest today. Marcus with May is a YouTube channel that I stumbled across. And this sister, May Ling, I think she's amazing. I can't wait to get to know her and find out, delve into her background. And we're just going to get right into it and talk about some about Wall Street and all this other crazy stuff that's going on. So, and here she is right here in the flesh. May Ling, how you doing, sis?
I'm good. It's really funny because we haven't gotten to speak very much. I didn't know you were broadcasting from Tampa. I grew up outside of Tampa, strangely enough.
Wow.
I grew up in Zephyrhills. I graduated high school in Lakeland.
Really?
Yeah, I'm close by. I was in the Hillbilly area.
Hey, see, I wasn't going to say nothing. I wasn't going to go there.
Sorry.
Hilarious. And now you up there with the Blue Belly Yankees up there in New York, right?
I am. I remember the first time I came home, it was the biggest joke. I was telling my parents, I was like, Mommy, she's like, what's the weirdest thing about being up north? Like, or what's the weirdest thing about being with the Yankees, right? And I was like, here's a weird thing. It's like, we went apple picking. And they're like, you went apple picking? I said, yeah. Apple picking is where you pay to pick fruits and vegetables. She was like, wait a second, hold on. There's like a whole, Plant City's right next to Zephyrhills, so it's like.
So they're like, let me get this straight. You pay someone to go to a tree and pick apples. Okay, do they like tie $100 bills to these apples or something?
You pay for the apples afterwards. Like you pay, yeah. So then they give you a stick and you go and you pick it from the tree. Like how we get our oranges and stuff. They got one for apples. It looks the same, right? And you pay for that. And they were like, wow. Yankees are weird. I was like that, out of everything. I was like, the only other thing was they also had at the time, because, like my dad and his family all actually grew up in Eustis. So my stepdad's family's in Eustis, right? So it's like farming area kind of back in the day it would have been. And, my mother has a long history in farming as well, because they made everyone farm in China before she immigrated over. So she's like, what other weird things? I was like, oh yeah. I know that there's this farm for chickens that are missing a leg. My mom was just like,
hold on. I didn't know that. That is no
dinner, right? I'm like, no. I was like, no, they just want them to have a better life. She's like, I don't know. I was like, it's a different world sometimes, but that's how it is.
Oh my God. That, and I was slow on my sound effects board, but it's like, yo, they have a farm for chickens with one leg. And right away, I just want to hit my buttons. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, what did she say? Chickens just hopping around being chickens.
One leg. But apparently, I all joking aside, I know the vegetarians and there's a lot of animal rights people. That is what it is. But that is a very different part of culture. I will say I got to respect because I'm living up here. At the same time, that's really not the way other areas maybe think about things.
And as a stand-up comedian, I'm going to poke holes in it and find the funny in it. I'm sorry. That's just what we do. It is what it is. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know what to tell you. I'm an American. You see that flag behind me? I'm a former soldier. former paratrooper. I fought a war. So look, my war card, my veteran card trumps your whatever card. Like,
if you paid for the chicken, you raising the chicken, you do whatever you want.
Exactly.
That's very American. You want to keep one leg chicken? It's a free country. I support that.
Do you? Exactly. Do you? But I'm going to make jokes about it. I'm just so you know, I'm going to joke about it. So, okay. So I was going to ask you that too. So you said your mom's from China. Yeah. Is your dad from China as well?
He's passed away. He was also from China. He got out before a certain period. So the communism started in 1945, and then it got really rough in the 60s, but he was out by the 60s. So
that's what's up. Oh man, we got to bring you back so you can tell me that story. So yo, you speak Mandarin, Cantonese. What's going on?
I speak really poor Cantonese American. I'm super American. I grew up in Tampa. There's no Asian people in Tampa. You know, like I know the one Chinese Russian that was there forever, and now there's more than one. Fun Garden. You remember a long time? No, it wasn't Fun Garden. It was this other. There was this big Chinese restaurant. It's the only Chinese restaurant in Tampa for the longest time growing up. I can't remember what it was. I don't know.
You got me because I've only been here 2 years. Oh, I just got here. I just got here. So you tell me and I'll go check it out.
More than it was then. Tampa's great.
Yeah, Tampa's a great place to grow up. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Cincinnati, and I spent a huge chunk of my adult life on the West Coast. I was in California off and on for like 20, 25 years in LA, working. I spent some time in Miami. I spent some time in San Diego, but the majority of that time was in LA. You want to talk about different. You think the Northerners are different. No, man, when you go out west,
you find a lot of one-legged chickens in the West Coast.
Ooh, oh yeah, three-legged dogs, one-legged chickens. It's like it's out there, yo. But again, it's a different culture. Yeah. Oh, kind of. Yeah, they're kind of happy. They want you to believe they're happy. It's fun. It's again, that's where I started my stand-up career. I would be, air traffic control by day, comedy by night, and man, I would just be walking to do a set, and I would see something that I've never seen before, and 10 minutes later, I'm talking about it on stage, and yeah, I've got myself into quite a bit of trouble. I ain't gonna lie to you. But that's another life.
Don't get me into trouble. I still gotta live with these folks.
Yeah, they come, they can pull up on me. They know me. I come see them. They run for me. They know I'm coming. Like, what? You got a problem with me? Here I come. I'll be right there. You know what I mean? Notebook in hand. All right, let's talk about this. You gotta make fun of me. Yes, I am. So, May. All right, we got out to a great story. We're just here, kind of talking back and forth. But I would like to give you an opportunity to tell everybody who you are. I mean, we found out some little things, but who is, what is Marcus with May? How long you been doing YouTube? Why did you decide to do it? Just so people know who we're dealing with.
Oh, okay. Well, Markets with May is mostly, it's kind of like my vlog more than anything. I started it probably about a year and a half ago, January of last year. And I started it because I was doing all this research anyways. And for the first time in my life, I actually am doing research, but I'm not under compliance regulation because I'm not doing anything that would require that my stuff all goes to the SEC. So I was like, well, if a bunch of other people are doing a YouTube, I might as well do YouTube as well. So I started it with a gentleman, with some other folks that wanted me to kind of promote their stuff. And I was like, fine. They just wanted content. Subsequently, it's now kind of its own independent thing. By way of background, I worked in finance for maybe 17 years, always with big institutions. I think that makes me a little different from the other finance folks out there because a lot of them, maybe they are self-taught. Nothing wrong with that. But it's like anything. You can learn to do pretty much anything by yourself. But if you've had like mentors and folks that have trained you, you might know it a little differently. Also, if you've been in specific roles, you might know it a little differently than if you just read it on a book or were trying to figure it out yourself. So I think that's what kind of makes my channel different. That's really
absolutely 17 years in the business. Yo, you're an OG, sis.
Yeah, I actually, Black don't crack, Asian don't raisin. So I resigned.
Wait. Asian don't what?
This one, Asian don't raisin. Sorry.
Oh, you are fastly becoming one of my favorite people on the planet. You know that, right?
I resigned from from finance about 5 years ago, and then I just went nomadic for a while and took some time off. So I'm not fully retired. I always call it semi-retired because I do a whole lot of stuff. I do consulting projects and stuff like that. But that's
17 years. So we're talking like Wall Street, 17 years, or were you just kind of floating around Wall Street?
I started in 1999, worked my way through.
Oh my goodness. Hey, we're not worthy. That's
No, it's the
that's
same thing.
hardcore.
You did a ton of time trying to figure out all your stuff in your career if you retired too.
Yeah, well, it was simple air traffic control. I mean, I taught the airplanes, I kept them from bumping into each other. It was cool. Yeah, it was stressful, but
No, but you got like
finance.
weather patterns. You probably went. Did you only work in one traffic control tower?
I worked in a few, but it's a government position. So you know what? The government is massive. So I was in Van Nuys, I was in Miami, I was in San Diego, and that was pretty much my whole career. I could have done more, I could have done less. But it was very fulfilling to go to work and keep people alive, basically. That's what we were doing. And
Yeah.
there were times when it got crazy and pilots would tell you like, hey, good call, hey, thank you, send gifts because they know, like, bro, you'd have got that wrong. You like a different thing. But I guess we're in different fields. I'm looking over the fence at what you do, and I'm like, yo, you guys control the world economy. I mean, hey, I got so many questions. I mean, I'm pretty sure you get that from folks.
It literally, I always think it's really funny with the finance bros and how intense they get, because honestly, it's the same thing as your field. If someone was coming in, they're like, how do you keep the planes alive? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it literally is like, yeah, whatever, we're gonna do it, so you'll never get it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay. So, all right, just because I had this whole idea what we're gonna do with this show, and that's all blown up right now because I didn't know the 17 years part. Let's do this. Let's get right into the banks, because you and I did have a brief conversation offline on what was it, Instagram. We're going back and forth, and I was asking you about the regional bank situation. Now, initially I wanted to start from the beginning. Okay, what's finance? Go. I was going to do something like that, right? But I'm like, that's not going to work because you're like, listen, this is a big world. So let's talk about the regional banks. One thing I really want to ask you, why is it that media and most of the finance bros seem to be afraid to use the word crisis? Because this, to someone like me,
crisis. It's really bad. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways that people are talking about it. Some of it is because, so here's what it is. Even if you're really great at finance and accounting, there's only a couple of financial statements that are harder to read than bank financial statements. It's not their fault so much as there's, number one, a ton of jargon in finance, and number two, the thing they're actually selling does take a little effort to try to learn. So I always say that so I've got, as you might have seen, a ton of videos on each individual bank where I try to go through it best I can. But if you're in air traffic control for forever, basically, you forget what things are jargon and what things are not jargon. So I always ask people to stick it in the comments if you don't understand it. But I try to walk through it. But so, for example, the jargon is so weird, such that for every other industry, the revenue that you take in is just called revenue. It might be called sales. It might be called something like that. But for banks, it's actually called interest income. And then they have fee-based income. You think it'd be really easy, but it turns out interest income or interest, whatever it is, for most companies is totally different the way you would see it on the financial statements. And just that right there as an example makes it really hard for most people to actually do real work on these companies. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that makes it really hard is the instruments themselves. Like, what does it actually mean to account for that correctly and then manage it? So if somebody has been in finance and wealth management, but has never actually done risk management, they've never been at the corporate side where you then had to do the accounting for it. They've never done this whole series of things, maybe because they're younger, maybe because they became a narrow specialist, which this field does a lot, then they're going to focus on things that are, in my mind, correct to focus on it, but the context is off. You know what I mean? It'd be like if you're over on the West Coast, you got a certain type of weather that you always have to watch out for, right? And then I put you somewhere else, and somebody's like, "Okay, listen, this runway's this short. Okay, like, you can't be focused on everything or something." I'm just guessing,
But you got points there. Like, so really good point actually for air traffic. So if the weather determines how much runway a pilot may or may not need. If it's really hot or really cold. Yes. So an aircraft can do certain things in California weather conditions, let's say, like perfect, it's 80 degrees, it's warm out, versus New York. when it's minus 35 degrees. The aircraft is only going to be able to perform so much in those conditions. So, and when we talk about climb rates and stuff like that, so I see what you mean. In finance, you might have some people who are like, well, in our world over here, let's say with these, commercial guys who are buying up a bunch of properties, this is how we do business, as opposed to the big banks over there who are doing something with some global interest. I can see how that could be two different worlds and they don't necessarily mesh well.
Yeah. So you have a lot of really weirdness with finance bureaus on how they're depicting it for sure. And I usually stay out of all the finance bureaus because I don't necessarily need them to read financial statements. I don't know another way to say it. I just been doing it for long enough where their input is sometimes interesting if they have equivalent experience, then I find their input extremely interesting. But if they're kind of guessing, then I find it difficult. The only thing that I find interesting about it is where they got it kind of confusing so that I could try to figure out what my content might be. But in simple terms, here's why it's actually a little bit more of a crisis than you'd think. And yet it's also kind of not a crisis. So it's like this. What's happening with the banks is if you think about it, what a bank does is you give them money, or you give them money, essentially the deposits, and then they lend that money out. And it's always been this is what the concept of a fractional reserve system is. And some people are like, we should go back to gold standard Bitcoin. I'm like, no, honey, even on Bitcoin and gold standard, you did the same thing. You lent out more than the actual capital you had. And it's kind of like this. If you think about when you first buy a house, right? You maybe borrowed, back in the day, it might've been 100,000, but you only made, and your bank account only had, whatever thousand it was, but you never had any problem paying your housing payment. Right. Okay. So it totally makes sense if you have a lot more debt than because what we really care about is, can you pay it on time? Not how much debt you have, but can you pay it on time? And what is your future earnings? Right. Okay. So what's actually happening on the banking system is that, imagine if your lender suddenly made you pay it all back right now and was like, no, you know what? Even though you were only supposed to do $1,000 payments or $500 payments, what I'd like you to do is pay the entire principal back right now. Do you know what I mean? That will explode anyone, let alone a bank. That's what's actually happening at the banks. So all this held to maturity stuff is really the equivalent of saying, hey, if they had to pay it all back at once, they would be screwed. Well, guess what? Most people will be screwed. You know what I mean?
Okay. And that's what you meant. All right. You know what? That does make sense, because I was asking you, well, isn't this some incompetence? Maybe there's some management issues going on here. Like, why would they do this knowing this could happen? Jerome Powell made it clear he was going to raise the interest rates, right? Now we're talking about the beginning of, taking the interest rates from 0 up to where he did. We knew he was going to do this. And I'm thinking, well, maybe someone screwed up in management. Maybe someone didn't believe him, and they're like, we're gonna make this 10-year bet, and then all of a sudden interest rates go up, just like Jerome Powell said they were gonna go up, and then someone spooked the herd, and then, like you said, now there's a bank run. Now people want their money right now. So go ahead.
Oh no, you're totally right. So that's what. So the thing is that with your mortgage, the thing that allows you not to be worried that the bank's just going to be like, pay the whole principal now, is that you got a contract. It's a 30-year fixed, whatever it is. Maybe it's an ARM or something like that. But but by the way that contract works, deposits, unfortunately, is an overnight contract. It's not even an overnight contract. If you go to the bank, you expect to be able to take your money out like this. All right. Yes. So most banks are funded. Their mortgage is essentially this overnight. So if everybody takes it out at the same time, the run on bank, you get what you had with Silicon Valley Bank. But realizing too that, so then who takes repossession of the house, right? So on the depositor side, they gave you your money back, but who took repossession of the actual house is a totally different story. And in this case, what's happened is the bank's given possession of the house to whoever bought the assets. And so just to kind of get people to ask the questions in their own mind, because there are a lot of technical words and technical stuff in the presentation of this. If you think about it this way, the immediate profit that, Silicon Valley Bank happened middle of March. First First Citizens, I think, is the one that acquired the assets. They estimate a $10 billion gain on that, just to give you a sense for it. So all of the talk about how Silicon Valley Bank was like mismanaged, they should just totally zero out all the investors. Everything was bad about what they were doing. If that's true, think about how a bank that acquires their assets ends up with a $10 billion gain. First, JP Morgan, immediate accretion. The word accretion means I get to take a gain. All right. Immediate accretion was estimated at $600 million, which was approximately the market value of First Republic. And they believe that they'll make $2.6 billion minus $2 billion in investment banking fees off of the assets fairly quickly, meaning like a quarter. So that's another 600. So they're going to make over $1 billion off the assets. The equity holders and the debt holders get zero. And
that's the part that gets me when I hear these numbers. Okay, there's a room full of men and women who are just making this stuff up, and they just take an average of it because it has to be based on something. Well, we believe that under the current market that this is going to be worth this much money.
No, it's worth that much. It'd be like if the bank took your house tomorrow because you couldn't pay the principal. Your house is definitely still worth something.
But what is it worth in the conditions where okay, well, you took my $1 million home because I couldn't keep up with the payments. Great, wow. You got the home is worth $1 million, right? I'm just making up numbers. And here's the thing: $1 million. I'm just making up numbers, but $1 million. What would that give me? Like a 8-story walk up in somewhere in New York, somewhere with like no AC. So you the one balling. I'm looking behind you, girl. I'm like, hey. Don't try to put it on me.
All right, back to our story.
Back to story. $1 million house is taken because I couldn't pay for it. So
no, it's not that you couldn't pay for it. It's because they suddenly wanted your debt back.
And I couldn't pay for it. I didn't have $1 million liquid.
Right.
I didn't have $1 million. Hey, I just went to Vegas. I lost my $1 million cash. I got $300,000. Okay, y'all take my $1 million house. But in this climate, with the interest rates being high, and we have this looming crisis with commercial real estate, and then it's going to spill over into residential, and that's going to spill over into the markets, which we're going to talk about in a minute. That $1 million home may only be worth $365,000.
No,
that's not how it works.
Okay, so there's a couple pieces there that people are skipping. The first thing is, remember, the reason they're taking your house isn't because there was anything wrong with your payments. Right? We haven't had any credit losses. The reason they're taking your house is because suddenly that $1 billion, instead of being due over 30 years, they want it due now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's more pawn shop style. That's not really like mortgage style, right? That's more like a bookie than it is like a.
Now you're dealing with the Genovese.
We're gonna keep it real. That's what that is, right? So you have to come up with $1 million, even though you had the payments that you're supposed to have. Now you got to pay the bookie all of it right now for some reason, right? Okay, so there was nothing wrong with the house to begin with. Credit losses. So that's what that word credit losses that everybody's talking about mean. Credit losses have been extremely low. At the time that First Republic went under, their credit losses were 0.06%. But realize 0.06%, usually that bank has 0% on average credit losses because of the way that they make the loans. So what I've said on my videos, they make the loans to wealthy people. And the only reason wealthy people default are things like divorce. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So they repossess the house, and 2 quarters later, they actually get most of that back, strangely enough. So there were that book that JP Morgan bought has close to no credit losses in it. So at this particular point in time, because what we have is a banking crisis and not an asset crisis, that's what's going on. Now, with commercial real estate, you got kind of a little bit of a weird spin that's going on there because everybody's like, all commercial real estate is doing poorly. That's not true. Office commercial real estate is doing poorly, but warehousing is doing great.
Multifamily is doing good.
Multifam's doing a fantastic, right? You're totally right. And that's because out of 2008, we had the lowest builds that we've ever had. And it only just started to improve 2018 to 2021 or 2020. And then COVID hit. And then it really, like the shortage got aggressive relative to where people were moving. So down in Florida, you guys are still getting a housing appreciation. And when I looked across the nation, there's only a few spots that either are flat or actually are starting to see the first month of decline. Arizona, I think, got the first month of decline. It's the only retirement snowbird capital that's gotten that. Everybody else is still seeing increases in property except for California and New York. California,
Well, Boise is pretty bad too right now. You got like, because all those people, all those transplants from California, when they went to Boise, and they went to places like what's the place in Texas, Austin. That spike is starting to come down, and even here in Tampa, it's starting to nose down.
Yeah, but year over year, the pricing is still okay. It's not. Look, it's not great. I'm not going to say it was like 2 years ago. It was nuts what people were paying,
right.
But so New York, Seattle, and California have a different thing going on. California, I know everybody's like, oh, they have a surplus. They only have a surplus because they don't pay their government workers. Okay. Cause we don't in Florida. See, I'll always be a Floridian. You can almost hear it in my voice, right? So like in Florida,
I can barely hear it in your voice. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm like, where's your accent, girl?
Yeah. In Florida, they include pension liability so that they don't lie when they say they have a surplus. The state of California excludes pension liability. That's why they have a huge pension deficit. So what's the pensions? Who are we really talking about here? We're talking about teachers, firemen, police officers. We don't exclude that when we say we have a surplus in Florida. Okay, I'll always be a Floridian girl. Right. But they do in California. That's why they have a surplus, which I think is nonsense, with all due respect.
I agree with you. No, it's crazy out there in California for a whole bunch of ways. So, and that's when you get into that funny accounting, and they can't fool you because you know numbers. But someone like me, I don't know the world, so I'm seeing things. I see this here, I see that there, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's something missing. I'm not the brightest man on the planet. I give you that. But mama didn't raise no fools. I'm like, hey man, something ain't right here. There's something that I'm missing. So, and that's why I like your content, because you're able to provide that missing information, and I can tell there's no bravado there. You're just like, hey man, here it is. Y'all do what you want with it. Here it is.
I'm not pushing anything, like especially my stuff on banking is really because people need something where they can understand why are people saying my bank's going out of business, and when I call the bank, they swear they're not going out of business. What's actually happening? Just answer the question for the people. It's really not that big of a deal right now. If you lose the deposits in your bank, if the deposits come out fast enough, it is essentially like if a bookie knocked on your door and said, how I was cool with the payments, I'm not cool with the payments anymore. That's essentially what it means to lose your deposits. And if you lose too many of them all at once, you're in trouble. And you've got FDIC insurance, which is non-insurance insurance. I'll tell you what FDIC insurance is first after a second, because I find it's like if that's not propaganda as a name, I don't know what is. But we'll go back to what FDIC insurance is. So you've got FDIC insurance, which will protect you as the depositor, but it doesn't protect the bank at all, and it sure doesn't protect anyone that invested in those banks that are public. In particular, private's a different story. Okay, so let's kind of walk through some of it. So that's what it means for a bank to lose deposits. By the way, no bank will ever have as much cash money in its storehouses as the amount of deposits. No bank will have as many deposits as liabilities. It wouldn't, like, given how banking regulation, investment firms, whatever is set up there. I could go through a huge list, but let's not go into the crazy details. But it wouldn't even make sense for a bank to do that under the way that it's structured in a lot of different ways. Let me just put a pin in that. But as long as your bank is as long as you are under the 250,000 limit, you're good. And if you've got if you've got a brokerage account, there is this type of insurance called SIPC, and that covers you up to $1 million. Only 250,000, which then goes to the FDIC, would be covered. Okay, so just if you're like, what's safe, what's not safe, that one, I answered it for you. Now realize what is considered a banking account. You should double check your IRA, because depending on how it's structured, that's a good conversation for you to have. That, I think, for a lot of people that are especially retirement age, that's the one that's going to get the closest to that 250 kissing it on the constant. So that's the one.
And real quick, when you say you should check your IRA, you should check your IRA, you should check your 401ks or whatever, your TSPs for you government folks.
Yeah.
Who do you need to pay to check this for you?
You should maybe call them up. What's insured on my IRA?
Oh, and that's what you asked. So what you asked, what's insured on my IRA?
Yeah,
okay.
Is my IRA covered under FDIC? Am I at any kind of limit I should be aware of? Especially if you have some rich folks, they got well over $1 million in their brokerage accounts and stuff, you need to call your broker and just double check that. because here on all of this insurance, remember this: the insurance was designed for was designed so that it could protect you against a single bank failure. So if you got 251 count with Bank of America, you got another count with Bank of America, 250, only 250 is covered unless you're married and it's a joint account. Okay.
And then that's
so
500.
Yeah, then it's 500. That's correct. On a joint account. But each one, it's only like if you have, you just have to double check. Are all of my accounts correctly insured to whatever is insured?
And how often should you do this? Should this be an annual thing? Should this be a quarterly thing? Like, how often should you do that?
Oh, no, you just have to check it one time so you understand the rules that you're governed by. Do you know what I'm saying? So, so like, if you have a brokerage account, so a lot of folks, they took whatever pension or whatever 401k money and they rolled it over and stuck it in a brokerage account. They probably have not bothered to just ask that simple question, which is probably somewhere in the documents. What is my account insured up to in the case that there's a banking issue of some sort? That's a random question to ask if you think about it.
Should be the first one. Like, I want to know this before we do anything.
Yeah. So that would be the one thing that I'm telling everybody to just kind of double check what's insured, what's not insured. Your classic bank person should be able to tell you that because they should know. I'm sure at this point with everybody calling in, they know the answer to that. And then from there, I don't know, we'll have a conversation sometime about it,
Absolutely.
They might have some recommendations, but yeah. So what is insured? Now, if you had a credit union, which a lot of folks are, remember FDIC only covers regular banks. So, but because of what happened in the 80s and to a lesser extent, what happened in the late 90s, 2008 period, but really it's really then almost everyone had it done by the time we were out of the S&L scandals. Most of them got private insurance. And so a lot of credit unions have private insurance. Some of them have it at 250. Some of them have it at 100. All of them put this information front and center on their website. And if you can't find it, because sometimes these websites are complicated, just call them up. They need to answer the question for you.
Okay. Man, this is great information. You are definitely hooking a brother up. I want to catch up with the chats real quick, and then we'll continue. Brother Nightish is in the house. We got Dr. B in the house. Mandrill Primal Studies. I see y'all in here, bro. What's good? Dr. B, hey fam, been a long week at work. Dr. B is a doctor. I hate it when he says that he has a long week at work because I'm like, wait, what does that mean? That's like me saying I had a long day at the office in the tower. I hope all is well, bro. And Dr. B _4. Yeah, he's like, fortunately, I'm off this coming week. Great. We got Primal Studies in here. Brother Primal Studies is a veteran, Army veteran. He's a combat medic. He is the angel of angels. I'm a former paratrooper. Brother Mandrill is a Green Beret. That's Brother Mandrill right there. What's good, fam? Wow. But yeah, we got a lot of vets over here. But we all love medics. I mean, medics go into a bar with soldiers and they never have to buy nothing. I mean, they're like the equivalent to like the cute, the hottie. They walk in there like, yo, that's a medic. Yo, what are you drinking, bro? Bottles show up because we love those guys. They run out there with nothing but medical bags. And they dance around bullets to get to you and drag you out of harm's way, man. Shout out to you, bro. Amazing. Yeah, they're the best ever. And then Dr. B is saying, speaking of Florida, I'll be back in Miami in October. I'll be there, bro. Bet. And we got Brother Marcus with us. He's a Marine, hardcore Marine. All Marines are crazy. You need to know this. If you've never met a Marine, you need to understand one thing about them. They are all crazy. They're very religious, and this is how they pray.
Pray! This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
That's how Marines pray. All of them pray that way. They all do it. You know what I mean? Brother Penny.
Parts of Florida do it that way too, by the way.
But they'll do it. They're drinking, Jim Beam and crushing beers down. Yeah, let's go look at this. Oh man, these people down here.
Your place, my friends.
They are. Yeah, these people down here crazy with their firearms. I will give you that. I'm like, this is a special kind of place down here. I love it though. I ain't gonna lie to you, Brother Penny. Like, just join the stream, so forgive me if you're already addressed this. What is Mei Ling's opinion on Blackstone's breach? Yeah, we haven't got to that. I do have that written down in my notes. We haven't gotten that yet, bro. So just hang in there. We're gonna probably end with that because I do have a lot of questions. I'm curious to see what you have to say about that. Is it a solid offering? Are there underhanded accounting practices at play? We're kind of talking about the fudge numbers here already. Like the way that I think the fudge numbers is me being mean. It's just the way that they do their numbers are just foreign to the layman, right? We just don't understand.
Yeah. I don't actually know that specific product, so I'm not going to pretend like I do. in general for REITs, the thing that you really got to be careful of is just, so usually I do have a video out on apartment REITs to try to walk through how you'd even go about looking at them. The thing with any REITs, any real estate investment trust, is it's not, if you're watching someone and they're using EPS, that's the wrong number, because it's actually FFO, funds from operations. What do these jargon words mean? Okay. The reason you will never be able to use earnings per share is because earnings per share has depreciation amortization in it. What's that mean? Okay. Depreciation amortization is just like on your house. Every year you take depreciation, so you don't have to pay as much as taxes, right? So quite frankly, you want that net income number, which is what EPS is. You want it to be as low as possible because you don't be paying tax, right? Guess what? Big companies are the same way. So that EPS number is not very helpful. That's why the industry uses this number, funds from operations. Funds from operations is what kind of rent did you take in versus would you have to pay to fix the place up or any other number of things.
Like fix the roof, do the landscaping, plumbing issues. Okay.
Yeah, pay for the guy to come by and clean the pool, all that stuff. It's supposed to take that. That's what funds from operations is. And so I'll give you the link in case it's helpful. But if you go on my thing, you just look up REITs. I do start to talk. I looked at the apartment REITs because, in fairness, the apartment REITs are crushing it, and they're crushing it because no one's building houses because interest rates are so high. So that's really what, in simple terms, right? And so their funds from operations is increasing dramatically. Now, BlackRock has a lot of different funds. Or Blackstone, sorry. BlackRock has too, but Blackstone.
Same thing. Different companies, but same thing.
So Blackstone's got a lot of different funds. And so I don't know that specific one. If you're investigating, you want to know, the questions you're going to want to ask is, where exactly is that real estate? What exactly is the nature of that real estate? And they should give you, they might give you the actual buildings, which something like an apartment REIT will give you exactly where the location of the building is, all the addresses, right? Some of them, to simplify it out, they'll give you just the geography down to the city, what have you. And then, usually if you ask them aggressively, they'll give you more information as they go, because, no one is at these big companies. They're actually not trying to fool you. They don't need to. The jargon's so difficult that, you know what I'm saying? That already, and also the penalty for fooling you is pretty bad for the companies that are big. So I don't know the answer to that, but you're going to do almost identically to what you do if you were purchasing a home. You would find out, what locations are these things at? What are they saying is the cost to maintenance it, which is the operation cost, versus what they're making off of it? And that's going to be what funds from operation is telling you. And then what have they bought or sold recently? Do they have a bunch of land that they're actually selling out? Like, there's a bunch of home builders and REITs that both sold a bunch of land in Florida in the last 2 years when you finally got that appreciation, because they held on to it since 2008. So you know what I mean? Yep. So you want to just watch that. Did they buy more land at the stupidest price? All the things that are common sense or not common sense that you've grown to learn about your own investment in your own house apply when you look at REITs. Hopefully that's helpful.
Wow. It is helpful. And I know, and here's the thing, fellas, and ladies and gentlemen out there who are watching this now and going to be watching this in team replay, because the two of us forgot this was Mother's Day, so we're not going to go too long. Yeah, we're not going to go too long.
My mother, and she had her present early, because she gets really not happy when she doesn't get her present on time.
Yeah, I bet.
She gets really cranky.
I bet. So she sent people out looking for you. So yeah, I can see like your sister
May
out here.
And says, actually, I've never been late, but my brother's been late. He won't. I mean, he may watch this, he may not watch this, but like, he's never late again. I'll tell you that much.
Your mom don't play. So, but no, we're gonna definitely keep this at an hour. Normally on my Sunday show, weekend shows, I do an hour, but I can, I'm gonna be bugging you to bring you back. I'm gonna be bugging you to bring you back. So, and I dropped your link in the chat so people who want, like, please hit that link. Go subscribe. Go like Sister May's Marcus with May. And when she goes live, she's quick, guys. You got to hit the notification bell. So when she goes up there, she's up there just for a hot second. And make sure you show her some love, guys. I mean, this YouTube stuff. I mean, obviously, 17 years in the banking business, I don't think Sister May is hurting for money, but the work still goes into this. And it's just a sign of appreciation. Like, go over there, man. Send her some super chats and all that good stuff, man. Support.
It's so true. Really, you know, you do it and then you're like, no one cares.
Right. And she's a beautiful young woman. Like she's over there. Me, I'm a hardcore dude. I don't care. I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna be in your face, blah. You know me praying with brother Marcus and them. This is my rifle stuff. But ladies are different. Ladies, they need that. They need that.
Yeah, it's true. I'll take it.
You see?
Thumbs up.
So thumbs up, man. Go ahead.
Okay, because I'll feel bad if he's got no thumbs up. All right.
Right. So, and then, you know, family messing with it. What you doing with that YouTube? You wasting your time. Like, look, I got some likes. Look, I got. So yeah, do that, guys. So, and Brother Pitney wants to know, he says, May, do you think banking system needs to be overhauled? Should the developed world look for an alternative to fractional reserve banking? Before you answer that, I wanted to circle back to gold. I am one of those guys who, you know, I do my little research here and there and I look at history. And I truly believe that when Nixon brought America off the gold standard, that was a mistake. You know, and fractional banking is always going to be there, but there was a finite amount of gold. Now there's no limit. There's this. So now you got this green paper or this that used to be worth money. You could remember back, you wouldn't remember this because you're not old enough, but back in the day, you could get a silver quarter. If you had one of those silver quarters today, it's worth more than 25 cents, right? So it was based on stuff. What's your thoughts on that? Because the Vietnam War is the reason why Nixon wanted to come off the gold standard, because it was a work around Congress. He couldn't get the money he needed to go fight the communists. So what's your take on that?
Okay, so you're right. The U.S. came off officially the gold standard during the Vietnam War. That's exactly correct. Before that, we'd already been trying to come off of it since World War II, and a lot of it had to do with the transport cost because pirates are real.
Yeah. And they want that gold.
That's a real thing. Y'all are military people. You know them real. They're real. Like, you know what I'm saying? The other people that knows they're real, the oil folks that have to get that boat through that one area of Africa. And,
shout out to the Somalis. Yeah, and Brother Mandrell, who worked in that region. Yeah, he hates Africa to this day. He hates that continent. If you get Mandrell to talk about it, he's like, man, I hate that continent.
I never thought I'd be saying that on your show, but pirates are real. Shout out to the Tampa Bay Pirates.
Right.
All right. So like there is actually a lot of security costs in just moving that stuff around. Okay. So fractional reserve system. The thing that's really interesting is that even if you do bring us back to gold standard, you don't necessarily solve the problem that the banks are experiencing right this minute. What they're experiencing is that no matter what, you're going to take in a certain amount of money and then your job is to lend it out, right? If you think about it, the banking system is if the central bank is printing the money, then and they're like the manufacturer of money, the banking system's just the distribution arm. So what's happening is they're getting the money and then they're distributing it. And the way in which they distribute it is what you learned back in the day called the multiplier effect. It's just they teach it with different words than I'm teaching it right now, right? So so they distribute the money, and then in distributing it, that's what the loans really are. And so they're loaning you the money. You gave them deposits in exchange for that money. So this is what the industry calls borrowing short-term debt to pay for long-term debt. So you expected that money back whenever you wanted it. They are lending it out usually with a 5-year. If it's a car, it's like a 5-year loan. If it's if it's just your credit card, you're paying it back monthly with interest, all that kind of thing, right? All right. Usually those deposits were what they call sticky. That's the new technical term for it, meaning you didn't change banks every day, but the young folks, they are changing banks literally every day. They're not
just swipe. They're just boom, boom, boom. It's done.
It used to be you'd be at the bank. You weren't changing banks. I mean, some of my banks I've been with for a very long time. I refuse to zero out the balance and just move on. I keep whatever is their minimum that they require to keep, to not go crazy on me. And that's how, I'm a Gen Xer, the back end of the Gen Xers, right? It's not our generation doing this. We're not moving our money around like crazy. Right? But these Gen Zs, they move it around really fast. And a lot of millennials, the younger millennials, also move it around really fast. And then during the Silicon Valley Bank thing, you had this guy come out and say, hey, everybody, move your money. All right. And then because we watched that bank go from a very normal bank to zero in the course of like a few hours in the morning, you've got a real banking scare. So even if we went back to the gold standard, it doesn't change that aspect right there, which is what's causing the bank problems.
Right. And technology, which is really like fuel on the fire, right? It's jet fuel on the fire because it can happen. So you don't remember back in the day, in order to get your money out the bank like that, you had to go to the bank.
You had to physically go, you had to line up.
It's the run on the banks. It was, you had to run down there to be the first one to get your money. Now it's all technology does it. It's just
you do it from the comfort of your home.
It's all gone. Got all the money out. That's crazy. And everyone talks about Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley did, whatever. But Silvergate was the bank that started it all. That was patient zero.
It's true. People don't really give that appreciation to that. It's true.
Because they're like, oopsie. Now, okay, so with Silvergate, was that the case where, okay, we screwed up? It was a management issue. We're going to close our doors. We know we're not solving anymore. And then someone said,
Silvergate.
Yeah. So, all right, like I said, we're running out of time, and I don't want to.
No, Silvergate's issue was because the money that they were getting, the deposits they were getting, a lot of them were. So it was what they were using for collateral. They were happy to use at one point, like stablecoin as collateral. And there's an inherent problem with stablecoin, which is that it still links back to the US system. The US system is a 9-to-5 gig. All right? Like, you know what I mean? So but the currency markets are 24 hours. So you can have these big mismatches. If like, you wanted your money out Monday morning, and so they gave it to you, or you wanted your money out Friday night or Saturday, and they went ahead and gave it to you, marking it to the international exchange rate. And then come Monday, because so many people wanted it, come Monday, they have to do something with one of the banks that's helping them manage the stable coin.
And that was Silvergate. I'm sorry, that was
one piece of what happened. And then after that, people started to attack them pretty aggressively. So the first thing was just people were like, oh, we got a problem here. And then I think FTX was using them for custodying some things. And so that freaked people out. And even though like most of the stuff that came onshore to the US was fine, but no one was sure if it was going to be fine or not. And so so Silvergate took a lot longer than Silicon Valley Bank to blow up in a blaze of glory, in fairness to Silvergate. Like, everybody was worried about them. They were on life support for a while. You had a little bit of time. With Silicon Valley Bank, you literally had Friday, and it was like Thursday night and Friday. It was ridiculous. So that's what freaked people out.
I saw a story about Silvergate on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I just talked about it on this platform. Didn't know what I was like. I don't know what's going on. And in that story, it had a link to Silicon Valley. So Thursday, I'm reading about Silicon Valley. Friday, they're out of business. It was like, yo, it happened so fast. And then came Signature, and then First Republic. And even though they fought for a while, you have that. And now you're looking at PacWest, and you're looking at Western Alliance. What do you think is going to happen with those two?
I don't know. In every single video I've presented, so I do have individual videos on, I think, all of them except for Signature. Signature, people tell me that even though you can see symptoms of the other things that the banks have, which is just, look, every bank's got more deposits than they have, or more in deposit, which is a liability, and then they've got this huge book of loans, and none of it's insured, right? Like, so like, or some of it's insured up to, I would say, like, I saw a couple of banks with like 50% FDIC insured, but not a lot of them. And the loans, it's really the deposit portions that we're talking about that's insured, right? We should probably talk about deposit insurance, what that actually is. The only actual bank, strangely enough, that is 97% FDIC insured on the deposits because of who that they tend to bank to is SoFi. So whereas everybody's so nasty on SoFi, there's other reasons why you might want to just, and I've got a video on that, but like, there's other reasons why SoFi may not be your bank of choice, but it's not because they're not FDIC insured. I'll tell you that much, because he went after younger people. He went after the student market, but he went after rich kids, with all due respect. He went after Stanford, and then maybe he moved it to Harvard. So it's mostly rich kids banking, paying back their student loans. And then he wound down the student loans portion and just started banking their house and other things that they might need a loan on. So that's SoFi, 97%. But as rich as rich kids are, most of them don't have 250 plus in their banking accounts. And rich kids don't own businesses typically that have 250 plus. Because so much of the banking industry is businesses, banks like JP Morgan are right around 50% FDIC insured. So this statistic that people throw out, most of them are FDIC insured, is nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. But nonetheless, it is what it is.
Wow.
Now,
Okay. That's
FDIC
girl,
FDIC
keep going.
insured is, FDIC insured is not regular insurance. Okay. Regular insurance, right? We all know this, especially if you're in Florida, you know this, right? They like come in, they write you a policy. This is how much your policy is. Something happens. We call that the event in insurance world. And then they pay you the money. That's what FDIC insurance is. Or sorry, that's what regular insurance is.
Regular insurance, yeah.
There's a certain amount of insurance. We pay it out if the event happens. FDIC insurance don't work that way. This is why the investors are a little bit pissed, right? FDIC insurance comes in, they repossess everything instead of giving it to the debt and equity holder. They auction it off immediately, right? They auction it off immediately to the highest bidder, which in the case of Fresh Republic was JP Morgan.
And they break rules to do it too, right? Because wasn't JP Morgan Chase too big to fail? They can't take it. They had to change the rules to even let them do that.
Technically, they were too big to fail, so they shouldn't have been able to do it, except if the bank goes under. But the way they're supposed to take it over is to actually buy the bank outright. But they didn't do it that way. They just bought the assets so that the equity and the debt holder goes to zero. Okay. So this is literally like buying your house and kicking you out of the house. Okay. They immediately, because they had enough of balance sheet to support the deposits, they paid, they just gave back the $10 billion to the FDIC. Okay. So now that's not how normal insurance works. Somebody doesn't buy your house and give the insurance company the money. Like, you know what I'm saying? So this bank, on the day that before it went bankrupt, was $630 million in market value, approximately. Okay. $600 million market value. JP Morgan took in on immediate accretion. That's what the word is. They took an immediate profit on the accounting statement of 600 something million, almost approximately the same value of the bank. Plus they got $120 billion worth of loans, of which none of them, the history of this bank is 0% credit losses.
So a 100, they got all that money in good loans. You ain't got to worry about none of that. They got all the upside, and none of the downside.
They give the bank they give the FDIC $10 billion to hold on to in case any of the banks, any of the loans actually go bust. So the FDIC doesn't pay deposits because now none of the depositors are taking money out. Wow.
Okay. So we're coming up.
That's the difference between FDIC insurance and regular insurance.
Wow.
When there's no credit losses. When there's credit losses, the FDIC is supposed to pay it. But here, there's no credit losses. So there's nothing for the FDIC. Everybody feels so bad for the FDIC. Nonsense. Like, you know what I'm saying?
That's the ultimate finesse. That's just the great. Okay. All right. Here we go.
Nothing for the FDIC.
Yeah, we got Brother Penny also said, Maine seems incredibly knowledgeable. Just subscribe. So he just subscribed to your channel. Please, everyone go over there. I dropped a separate video in the chat as well from Sister May's page about JP Morgan Chase. So you guys can just click on that if you just want to go directly to that video, or there's also a link in there to her site. Miss Globe Girl, former Navy. She's a veteran, my favorite sailor. I'm always giving her a hard time because the Navy, they used to have their names on their butt.
These people are so cool.
Yeah, she's hardcore.
So cool because y'all have like actual danger. And your children's like bad stuff can happen. That's why you can't take any of this too seriously.
No, you can't. No one's going to directly die because it's, but indirectly it's going to be some drama. It's going to be some drama in the streets.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Miss Globe Girl, she has at least 2, maybe 3 deployments. Just like one of my favorite sailors. She's asking, where's the safest place to put slant invest money today, in your opinion? And this is not, we do not do investment advice on this channel. We're just having a conversation.
I would say, because I can't give investment advice, and I also think like you should always go local and you should do your own research. That's why most of my channel, even if it might ever like sound like I'm very positive, I always tell you what I own or I'm not owning, and I also like ask you to please do your own due diligence. What I would say is that I'll tell you what my father always told me. He's like, May, there's nothing wrong with cash. Okay, like there's nothing wrong with cash. So you should never feel like you have to invest until you either, and number 2, you should never invest in something you really don't have, that you have no understanding of. You're never going to have that 100% understanding. So somewhere between a really good understanding and, and 100% is where you're shooting for. But you ought to feel like you really understand it. So invest in the things that you know that you can understand. Invest in yourself always, even if that means like you learning and listening to different things to help you better understand financial statements. If you want to take a community college class, pretty much anyone can. Accounting is not some crazy skill. Everyone that knows it or uses it can teach it to you. So I would invest in those two things so that you could definitely make your best assessments for yourself. If I was to say, if I could do it all over again, would there be one thing that I might say, all right, not investment advice. I actually think if you bought one share of Berkshire Hathaway B, and you should watch it and listen to the charts, all this stuff, just one share. Okay. So the B shares are $320. I don't know where it closed, but it's slightly over 300. The A shares are like $500,000. Okay. If you buy that, good for you. But if you just bought that and you thought of it as a ticket, to a concert, you actually do get to go to the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, which happens once a year. Once a year it happens until those guys die, and then we'll see if they continue. Charlie Munger is 99 years old coming up this year. Warren Buffett's 93. They're not going to be around forever. But I will tell you this, they usually have pretty good investment advice for as long as they've been, even though none of us are given investment advice. They have a practical mind to it, and they have a way of describing their investments that's actually helpful. It's not designed at all. I've always admired them, so I try to follow that best I can. But it's not designed to make you feel confused about what it is they did with your money. So I would actually suggest just one share of that at $320. You get 4 tickets to go, and then you just got to figure out your travel arrangements. It's not cheap to get to Omaha when 50,000 other people are trying to get there at the same time. I will give you that. But you could just look, and they usually don't announce you have to kind of figure out when the annual meeting is. And then lodging.
Sister May, she know people, y'all. She trying to be nice, but she know when it's coming. All y'all gotta do is be cool with this sis right here. She'll be like, I'm not telling you to make your plans in November. I'm just saying November. I like November, baby. The second week.
I didn't go this year because although I booked my hotel ticket, I didn't book my airline ticket. And then when my friend was like, let's have a girls' weekend, and it was the same weekend, it was the only weekend she could do it, I was like, that's enough of an excuse. I'm out. But the airline tickets get crazy. Like if you can get a good price for Omaha, and then you can also fly to Kansas City, a good price might be like $300. And then that would be a really good price. You should just get that ticket at that point. Right. And then hotels can be all over the map depending on how far you want to be from the convention center. But it's a long day. But those people are really it's a very pleasant day, strangely enough, because you don't get any of the bro behavior, because Warren Buffett's not a bro.
Nah, he's the man. He's the ultimate OG. He's the OG in that space. I got one question for you though. Do they have a W there? I mean, do they have, what type of hotels we have there? Because I'm bougie in my old days. I gotta have a certain type of.
So that you just have to get in advance, and you can use points. Okay, use points. Go find a points guy on the YouTube, whatever. But they do. They have a Marriott. They have, and then there's 3 other hotels around there. And then some people stay close to the airport and rent a car and do it that way. So there's but the price, you could see it. You go booking.com. That's the number one way. That would be the only hint I could give you, is that if it just happens that you're looking next year, late April, early May, and for whatever reason, one of those weeks is sold out, that's probably the week.
That's the week to do it.
That's the week. That's the right week.
Hey, so long as they have Star Wars properties, I'm going there. Because like I said, I didn't got bougie in my old age. I started out in the streets, and now I'm like, you know what? I can't go back to that. I gotta have nice stuff. Brother Chris Smokey House in the house. And first of all, everyone is loving you. We're coming up in the last few minutes, so I wanna because I know we're time restraints here. I gotta get you back on this platform. I gotta get you back on here so we can have another conversation. I see you, brother Chris. That breakdown of the difference between FDIC and conventional insurance was a question I've always wondered. Thanks for clarifying. See, you adding so much value, sis. See, you came over here for an hour and just dropping so many gems, so much value. Y'all better be over there subscribing. And when she goes live, y'all better be dropping some super chats, y'all. I know the recession is coming, but y'all got $10, $20. Y'all got some ballers on here. You send sis a cup of coffee. Starbucks ain't getting no cheaper, and I wonder why. So, and then we got brother Marcus probably ready to get married to you. I told you Marines are crazy. Stay away from them. A lady who is attractive, sweet, and knows about money and how to invest and save. Experienced in it. Bet she knows how to cook more than
A sandwich?
sandwiches. Yeah, I
If you
guarantee
got
it.
melatonin in your skin, you don't get to grow up without cooking. That's true.
Without cooking. And one of the things, see, and there's another, okay, so I'm part of this world called the manosphere. You probably heard about it because of all the Andrew Tate talk and all that, right? So one of the things that they say in the manosphere, and one of the things I say all the time jokingly, and sometimes I'm serious, is like, well, go make me a sandwich. Like, what kind of woman you want? I want a woman who can make me a sandwich, right? And that's what he's relaying. He's
Oh,
talking
I
about
didn't
that.
realize.
Yeah, we're just acting up. And then on the spot, this is sister I am the single one. She has on the spot her YouTube channel right here.
Oh,
Go, hey guys,
cool.
go over there and check her out. Where she does vlogs, and she's in real estate. Of course,
Wow,
she's
good
in,
for her.
and she's in Chicago. And we were talking last night, and we're kind of talking. I was asking about commercial real estate. I was asking about what's going on. Man, there's so much we wanted to end on. I know that I wanted to talk to you about CBDCs, but we're not going to be able to get into that. That's a long one. I wanted to talk about how BlackRock is coming away, and there's a rumor that they're going to be selling off their single family homes. And I was going to ask you what you think that effect would have on the markets. Like, because you look at, we can't get into that. That's why I got to bring you back. I'm sorry. So how would you like to end this conversation? Like, what do you think would be a good way to end? You've already talked about the OG Warren Buffett.
No, it's really your show. You let me know.
I mean, it's just the stuff I want to talk about. It'll take 25, 35 minutes just to get into, and I don't want to take that much time.
I would just say, okay, then maybe just a simple look. It's your money, so definitely, don't let anyone. You got to do your own work on it because it is your money, but especially right now because it's just an odd thing. Just make sure your money's insured as far as it goes, because I do think it's going to be a little wild here for the next couple months. For example,
I know what I want to ask you.
I saw an article on Bank of America. Now, originally I had mentioned them because of various reasons, because they have a very specific thing that they tend to invest in, and how they tend to invest is exactly this held to maturity. But again, none of these banks are doing anything different from the banks that have already gone under. I know a lot of people like to pretend like they are not. So just
I say that all the time. I'm not even in the business. They all do business the same way. Why wouldn't they? Air traffic controllers control air traffic pretty much the same way from coast to coast.
Yeah.
So I know what I do when I ask you. Now, if you go back 8 months or so, a lot of the talking heads on mainstream media, CNBC, Fox, and all that business, it's going to be a soft landing. There's not going to be a recession, Now it seems across the board, everyone's like, yeah, it's definitely going to be a recession. Maybe not so soft landing. And now we're at a point where even people are saying, we might be looking at a depression. This commercial real estate thing is bad. That's going to seep over into the retail real estate business, and that's going to seep over into the markets. So are you worried that we're headed for a light depression, maybe something akin to that Black Thursday back in, what was that, 87? Do you think it's going to be something like that? Or do you think that this is going to be, all right, maybe just 6 to 8 months of roughness, and then it's going to be business as usual? What do you think is going to happen here?
I think it's really hard to say, because here's the thing. The other thing I do is I listen to 400 companies a quarter. So I really do. I do a lot of, there's a lot of research I'm doing, strangely enough. And the thing is, this is a banking specific driven thing that may take us over into the dark side. And a lot of the companies are really healthy, and they're healthy because when rates were low, most of them did this thing called term out your debt, which essentially is this, that you refi your house when the rates are low, and then when rates rise, you're like, whatever, right? All the companies did that too. And the only difference is that you can refi out for 30 years. They're typically going to refi out for 5 or 10 years, depending on what the nature of it is. In the meantime, we got to get past this banking situation here. And for whatever reason, they're hell bent on raising rates. And I think they're hell bent on raising rates, not because there's a lot of talk about inflation and all that stuff. And that is its own discussion. I don't agree respectfully. And I don't agree respectfully because one of the biggest components in that CPI, they put out these special indices, but one of the biggest components that's inflating right now is housing. You don't fix housing shortage by raising rates. Just is what it is, right? You fix housing shortage by lowering rates, quite frankly. The only other thing that was a huge component that was rising is food, and no one can fix food being in shortage except for Mother Nature. So that's got to, I oftentimes think there's a lot of other conspiracy theory and then less conspiracy theory reasons on why they feel so passionately about continuing to raise these rates. But that is a much longer answer to your question.
See what I mean? Is this still when we get into it?
I'll pause it right there.
Because I'm sitting here right now and I'm like, oh, I'm making mental notes. I'm like, but Jerome Powell doesn't want to be Paul Volcker. I mean, he wants to be Paul Volcker. He doesn't want to be, looked at in history as the guy who blew it. So he was so determined. This is just my take on it. The guy outside looking in.
Yeah.
And then you look at, well, all these corporations would get, because the interest rates were so low, they were buying, single family homes because they were getting the best rates. Now the interest rates are up. They're in that position because it's like, well, why take any chances on fixing this house and fixing the plumbing? I'm in this thing for 3.25%, 4%. Well, I could go buy these 10-year treasuries for 6-7%. So, and now this is the last question, and then I know you got to go.
All right.
So, with that being the case,
yeah,
is it fair to believe that the housing sector is going to be flooded with single-family homes at a time when interest rates are so high that the average American can't buy them? And that's just kind of
it's hard to say. It's hard to say only because remember, you rent that thing out right now, you're going to make top dollar because there's a shortage. Depending on where you are, okay? Really depends on where you are. If you in Florida, you definitely will see rent increase versus year over year. But
right. Because that leads to more questions, and I'm like, I got so much more I want to say. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, because there legitimately is a shortage, especially for Florida, because Florida went into COVID with a bit of a shortage, and then all the Yankees, for lack of a better way to say it, went south, like you.
That's right.
So there's legitimately a shortage there. A lot of,
You're right. I mean,
if they don't take us straight into the gutter, then actually there's a way that it ends up mild recession and move on, but it's going to be month to month, quarter to quarter. So I don't have a strong view on it.
You don't have enough data yet. That's what I'm
having. Yeah. It's kind of like that part of Lost when you had like the two characters sitting on the beach being like, I hate you. So like, I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't know what the humans are going to do. What you like? I don't know.
All right, we're definitely going to have to leave it there. I mean, hey, guys, first of all, y'all need to go over, like I said, go over and subscribe to Marcus with May. Don DeMarco to you, love. And this is what the kids are doing. That soundbite is what the kids use when they look, something's nice. I'm in that world now. I'm kind of like a big kid. So Don DeMarco to you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank everyone in the chat. Thank y'all so much for supporting. Please, please, please go over, because this is what we do. I don't know if you do. Have you heard of George Gammon? Do you know who he is?
I'm so bad. I don't.
I'm a huge fan of George. He's the rebel capitalist. The rebel capitalist.
Okay.
I have done so many videos with him. Huge fan of this guy. I haven't met him, but we have mutual associates. I'm like this close to meeting him, right? Because I really believe in networking and degrees of separation. Yeah. So huge rebel capitalist. Please check. As a matter of fact, I'll send you a link to some of his stuff that I like. And thank you again so much for being here. Everyone loves you. Look at this. Look, everyone's like great guest.
Don't forget to call your moms, guys.
Yeah, don't forget to call your moms. It's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem. When are you gonna go live again? And just kind of plug yourself right now. Tell everybody how they can find you. When are you gonna be live again?
I'm not on any kind of real schedule, so I don't really even know. I'll probably do something Monday at the latest. So, and I usually do them like after the close. So I usually do them like sometime between 4:30 and 6:30. I haven't gone on a regular schedule yet, even though I put out a lot of stuff. But just hit the subscribe button if it's not a problem. And I'd love to see you on my show. I always take live questions as well. So cool.
And hit that bell, because you're gonna have to, because Sister Ling, she's doing all right. 17 years in the business. I think you're doing all right, sis. I can see through the window back there. I'm like, yeah, I see you, girl. I ain't mad at you. I'm sure mom is proud. I'm sure, and then your brother, and congratulations. I mean, that's so that's why I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna leave that alone. So thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I mean, really been an absolute pleasure. You've taught me so much inside of an hour, and there's so much we had to leave on the table because we have these time constraints. I'm gonna be bugging you, girl, letting you know now. You're gonna play, man, stop texting me. Like, listen, when we gotta do another show. So letting you know now. Thank you so much. Thank y'all so much for rocking with us. I'm here with May Ling. This is Marcus with May. I'm DL Saint. This is the DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast. We got to go, y'all. I'm going to talk to y'all later. Peace.
Darn, that's the end.
That's so cute.